Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. Running a little late today, and we're going to have a kind of an abbreviated show. I actually have to do some local radio on the fluoride side today. As some of you know, we're working on getting the fluoride out of the water here in Fredericksburg. Jasper says good morning to everybody as he chimes in, ready to go today. Jasper always brings his A game to the show. He's always bringing his A game. Whenever he decides he's going to be in the co-pilot seat, Jasper he's on. He's on like Donkey Kong, aren't you, Jasper? Absolutely. So anyway, I'm doing some local radio today because we're working on getting the fluoride out. Hi, Joe. And that's part of the program, literally and figuratively. So we're going to run today for about a half an hour and try to get in as much information as possible. Hey, it's Anna Bozeman. Anna Bozeman. Anna will be attending my webinar this Saturday on thinking astrologically and beyond, and you can too. Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, Anna. So Jasper's in a very friendly mood today. Look at him. Can you feel the love? It's right there. Hi, Jennifer. Good morning, Paulette. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening in France and kind of keep you updated. Update. An anagram says me too. Yeah, there's still space if you're into it. There is still space. Good morning, Beth. There's Lynn. Looking forward to the webinar. Yeah, it's going to be good. The thing I like about the webinar is we're going to stretch it out over time. It's at 90 minutes on a Saturday, so you're not going to be committing your entire Saturday to it. And if you miss one, you're going to get the recording nonetheless. By the way, good morning, Ani. Morning, Kathleen. Hey, Heather Elin and I just did a show yesterday on the new moon and full moon. It's a pretty good show. I have to say it's about an hour long. That's up on both our YouTube channels. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out. Pique your astrological interest. Okay, so I wanted to go over what's happening in France. Apparently now, the French have rejected Macron's offer, the 6-month offer. So what I wanted to read to you is I wanted to read something to you from somebody who's boots on the ground in France. It'll give you an idea as the situation unfolds. The fellow's name is Gilles. And this is on Henry Macau's site. Apparently, he's a friend of Macau's, so there's a lot happening. There's some desecration happening, and monuments are being graffitied and stuff like that. And real French people would not do that, by the way, because the French have a respect for their history. The stuff that's happening that you're seeing with some of the defacing of monuments and historical relics, that's from Antifa. Antifa's in the mix, and they're just using this as an excuse to be anarchic. Okay, so this is from Henry Macau. He says, fascinating times here. This fellow's name is Gilles. The invisible, hardworking class of people living on minimum wages and voting mostly for Marine Le Pen is finally on the move, and the government is in shock because this never happened before in recent history. Okay, so some of you may know that Marine Le Pen is the daughter of Jean Le Pen, and who is a French nationalist and has caught a lot of shit over the years. She lost to Macron in an election which looks like it was thrown. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that the pensions in France are very, very they're very minimal, ex-police officers in France make roughly about the equivalent of $900 a month US. So keep that in mind. And because it's so expensive to live in places like Paris, they've moved further out. So they have to drive, right? They have to drive to get to where they're going. Okay, here we go. The invisible, hardworking class of people living on minimum wages and voting mostly for Marine Le Pen is finally on the move, and the government is shocked because this has never happened before in recent history. France is fragmented into 3 groups: the elites praising globalism, the legal and illegal migrants living mostly from the nanny state and making lots of kids to get more money. And finally, the invisible majority of hardworking people funding the lifestyle of the two other parasitic groups. Nothing has changed since the revolution. We live in one of the poorest regions, no jobs, all industries closed. People here live with 1,100 euros a month. It's about $900 a month. Our neighbor, an 85-year-old retired policeman, gets 800 euros a month pension, so increasing the cost of diesel is like a death sentence. Even the police and firemen are turning slowly against the government. They too live on minimum wages and have a hard time to make ends meet. The violence you saw in Paris last weekend, was mostly due to the Antifa and far left destroying the symbols of France, like Marianne at the Arc de Triomphe, while the Arabs and blacks from the suburbs came to destroy and steal anything they could from the luxury shops. The media was insisting that the far right was responsible for all this, but this is a lie. The country is headed towards a civil war and eventually a split, as we have seen in Kosovo in the 90s. And then he talks about how, when he says black, he's referring to black North Africans that have come into the country. And when he talks about Arabs, he's talking about people from places like Morocco, Libya, excuse me. Algeria. So I'm giving you some context. So when he says black and Arabs, it's not just any group of black and Arabs, right? They're specific. With the associated behavior never seen before in this assembly. Why? It's because they haven't been in France for any extended period of time. This gets back to integration, real integration and assimilation, and it's not happening because it's like a tumor that's metastasized. And then there's this woman who she's pointing to a rising star in the Macron party, and she's been forced to deny allegations that she bid a taxi driver over a fare, a $12 fare. That's kind of funny. Eventually, you'll see the rise of Islamic parties asking for Sharia. Caucasian Christian French people have lost the demographic battle a long time ago. Like in Germany, we passed the point of no return. This is actually quite sad. And the UN wants to, throw gasoline on the fire by passing this Migration Act, which the United States, there are countries that are not attending that migration. So not everybody's going to sign on to it. Now, whether or not that's going to keep the UN from just flooding countries with more and more people, that remains to be seen. Let's see, here we go. More and more French, English, and German people will start to move to Eastern Bloc countries. This is an interesting statement. That will eventually become economic powerhouses. My German stepbrother moved to Bulgaria and loves it. No migrants, the city is safe, etc. I don't know if you've seen what they've done in Hungary, but they've put up a real serious wall in Hungary. Coming back to France has been difficult for the kids. I guess he's talking about his kids. They moved from a very privileged environment in Bahrain to a very depressing one here. 3/4 of their friends at the school come from broken homes, some of them suffering from domestic violence, incest. The overall level in class is very low despite the good quality of teachers. Young people here are depressed, seeing both their parents working hard for peanuts. Nobody believes in God here, creating a sense that life is useless and hopeless. Suicide among the youth is very high. So overall, it is a challenge for them, but at least they can see firsthand the result of socialism. The kids will probably move back to Canada later on or overseas. They don't like the French mentality. So I read this to you because it gives you a sense as to sort of, it's not even a bicameralization, it's a tricameralization, the breakdown of what's going on in France. So you have a very small group, the elites and the liberal class, who are in favor of enforcing global rules and global guidelines and global compacts like the Migration Act or the Paris Accord, the Climate Accord. And then you have this other group that's been brought in and has reached a number where it is completely emboldened and believes that because of the strength in numbers, and not just the strength in numbers, but the actual privileged attention and the privileged perks that that group gets, that they are completely empowered to do whatever they want. Now, this is a really interesting point to understand. If you track, I'll give you another example here. Hold on. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Hold on. Just saw it was just right here. One sec. Here it is, right here. So this is actually kind of a psyop. So when somebody comes into either this country or another country, let's say in Europe, people get set up with apartments right in the center of town. They get all kinds of credits. I mean, life is pretty good, and that's done for a reason. Part of it has to do with this process of demoralization. Because if you're somebody who lives inside of a country, whether it's the United States or whether it's France or whether it's Germany, England, Sweden, you'll see what happens. You'll see that these people get white glove treatment. Meanwhile, the people in this country or that country don't get shit. That's done for a reason. It's to demoralize. It's a demoralizing tactic. So this is News with Views. This is Frosty Woolridge, who has been on this immigration thing for a long time. He says a mind-numbing 63% of illegal alien migrants tap into American taxpayer dollars as K-12 schooling, breakfast, lunches, food utilities, housing, and medical care. Now, you may have a different opinion about the border situation. I'm reading you his. I think that we are culturally enriched by having other people in our country. Okay. I'm of the mindset that the border situation is a sieve, and it's being used now as a battering ram and a tactic. Like immigration has been weaponized, and I'm not cool with that at all for any country. Okay, any country. So I'm going to continue to read this. I'm just giving you my opinion. Not only do they violate our borders and break our laws every single day of their existence in our country, our U.S. Congress, your senator and House member makes you pay for that. At this point, the Yale legal immigration study showed that 22 to 25 million illegal aliens now call America their home. That's a lot of people. The report by Dr. Stephen Camarata of www.cis.org showed that 4.6 million illegal alien households utilize U.S. tax dollars to house, feed, educate, and clothe their families. Again, you might be of the mindset, well, we've got all this money, we've got all these resources, why not? Well, that's not really true. If you take the simplest number, because we're in debt up to our eyeballs and beyond. Our children's children will never, ever, ever be able to take care of this debt, especially because industrialization is going away. It's going bye-bye. Now, here comes AI. AI is going to come in. It's going to replace tons of jobs. So are we going to tax the robots and their paycheck in order for them to pay for the future? I seriously doubt it. If you take the simplest number of 2 children, wife and husband, into account for 4.6 million illegal households, that's a whopping 18,400,000 illegal aliens living off of your tax dollars. Worse, your Congress allows, promotes, and funds it. Your 2 U.S. senators and House member do absolutely nothing to stop it. In cold black terms, you, the American taxpayer, are getting reamed by your own government and elected representatives. Not only does Congress refuse to build a wall, but it refuses to stop anchor babies, visa overstays, and an average of 15,000 illegal from jumping over our borders 24/7. I just want to break in here. There's a woman named Sophia who has been sending me some stuff on Facebook, and it has to do with what's going on in Tijuana. It's very interesting. Again, it is not being covered by the mainstream media, but there are activists that have gone from like Cal Berkeley or a number of universities into Tijuana and are working with the quote unquote caravan people to bring them across the border. And it's really interesting because there was this one woman who's I think kind of like kind of a bit of a cause celeb, and she has a daughter, and she got on the news, and they were shutting down this one shelter, and they were actually moving people to another shelter. She refused to go, and because she was being told not to go by her American handlers. So we've got a whole swarm of handlers down there in Mexico that are doing everything in their power to bring people across the border. Just think about that for a second. It's not being talked about in the media. So here we go. These are among the findings. Okay, here we go. Let me just read this. You pay for those illegals and higher taxes and national debt. You pay for it in unemployment checks for our own citizens. You pay higher prices for everything from shoplifted goods by illegals to insurance rates because they can't or won't buy insurance, to paying for all their doctor bills. They won't. It's true. It's the insurance. Like if you get into an accident with somebody from another country, there's a good chance they don't have insurance. So basically, I mean, look, I haven't been in an accident in God, how long? Years, since the '90s. The '90s was the last time I was in it. 97, I think. Right, 97. So I drive pretty safe. Shit happens. We know that. Insurance is a bit of a scam. I have this weird theory that if nobody was insured, everybody would be safer, right? And insurance is kind of this theoretical cushion that we have, but we'd pay a lot more attention if we weren't insured. But anyway, a lot of these folks aren't, which means that we need to be, correct? Okay. So in 2014, 63% of households headed by a non-citizen reported that they use at least one welfare program compared to 35% of native-headed households. So we have a split, right down the middle. 35% of people from this country admit that they're involved in some form of entitlement or some form of program. 63% from not from here. Welfare use drops to 58% for non-citizen households and 30% for native households if cash payments from earned income tax credits are not counted as welfare. EITC recipients pay no federal income tax. Like other welfare, the EITC is a means tested anti-poverty program, but unlike other programs, one has to work to receive it. Compared to native households, non-citizen households have much higher use of food programs, 45% versus 21%. Medicaid, 50% to 23%. Including EITC, 31% non-citizen headed households receive cash welfare compared to 19% of native households. If the EITC is not included, the cash receipts by non-citizen households is slightly lower than natives, 6% to 8%. Today, 44 million Americans and non-Americans subsist on food stamps paid for by their daily laborers. Every time an illegal arrives in this country, eventually you start paying for his or her babies, their education, their clothing, their food, their housing, their utilities, and their medical care. Now, remember, when we talked about this Migration Act, one of the things that the guy who was shilling for it, the guy who works for the UN, basically said that having migrants leads to prosperity. Is this what prosperity looks like? The major welfare programs examined in this report are Supplemental Security Income, SSI, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, TANF, the Earned Income Tax Credit, EITC, the Women, Infants, and Children, WIC, food program, free or subsidized school lunch and breakfast, food stamps, officially called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, Medicaid, public housing, and rent subsidies. In a few words, you and your family are getting ripped off and trampled by illegal aliens. Could you imagine if you, as somebody who lives in the United States, or even somebody who lives in Europe, got some of these benefits? Could you imagine if some of our own people who are living on the streets, who are homeless, got some of these benefits? At the federal, state, and local levels, taxpayers shell approximately $134.9 billion to cover the costs incurred by the presence of more than 12.5 million illegal aliens and about 4.2 million citizens, children of illegal aliens. That amounts to a tax burden of $8,075 per illegal alien family member, and a total of $115,894,597,664. Wow, that's a lot. This is all part of a Yale study. Okay, these figures are not ginned up. They are not ginned up. Guess what? It's only going to get worse, because you will not see any change when Democrats take over the House in 2020. You're electing them and paying them to push for open borders. Their leaders like Bernie Sanders, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Chuck Schumer, and governors like de Blasio, Brown, John Hickenlooper all support open borders and sanctuary cities. So I'm giving you sort of, I don't know if we go into this area, but I'm giving you some insight into what's taking place, and what's taking place all over the planet. All over the planet, immigration has been weaponized. It's been weaponized. It was weaponized a long time ago, but now it's being ramped up. It's being considerably ramped up. And part of it is something that it's a crisis, right? It's a crisis. The crisis is, there's this book that I read a long time ago, back when I was in college. It's called, I think it's called the Prospect Inquiry into the Prospect of the Human Experience. It's by Robert Heilbronner. And he talks about sort of projecting into the future dystopian kinds of conditions that we would have to face. And it has to do with the fact that there's this major disparity in income between third world and first world countries. And that's potentially what we're seeing here. Not even potentially, it is what we're seeing. Over the course of the last decade, once connectivity and cell phones and the internet opened up, and the gulf between the haves and the have-nots became very, very clear. And if you're living in a third world country and you're living in some shithole and you saw what was going on, and there's this land of opulence, and you knew that you could get pretty much a free ride, why wouldn't you come here? Right? Why wouldn't you? I mean, why wouldn't you make that journey? The problem, again, starts with the fact that the places that these people are living in have not and cannot support them. The reason why most of them won't or can't be supported, number one, is there's a disparity in wealth. Mexico, for instance, the elite families, I think there's about 13 or 14 elite families that run the whole country, the upper 0.5%. And for the most part, they don't give a shit about their people, right? You go into places like Honduras and El Salvador, again, a very, very small fringe group runs everything. They're burdened by debt from the IMF and the World Bank. These people don't have a fucking chance. They don't have a chance. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to roll out the red carpet and bring him, like, hey, come on in over here, because that's part of the strategy. That's part of the plan. That's part of the weaponization. And that's to basically wipe out cultures. Right? The French are fighting for their cultural identity. And I'm not afraid to say that cultural identities are important. They're important. They're important. Every culture has an identity. And it's important for them to, to cohere to it. It gives people a sense of context and a center in the world. And when we have what we're having now, this weaponization of immigration, there is no center. It's wiping out the center. It's wiping out the context of who people are. So we may see migration, just like what this fellow Gilles was talking about, in France, where the Central European countries now are going to be populated by people from Western Europe. I don't know what's going to happen here. There's really no place for us to go, because we're kind of, can we go to Canada? Canada is going to sign the Migration Act, by the way, and they're going to be flooded with 2.5 million worth of people coming into Canada. Good luck, Canada. I know that you guys just legalized weed, so that'll help you. You'll stay comfortably numb while your country is being overrun. I just bring it up. I bring it up because it's a twofold problem. The problem exists in the home countries of the people who don't have shit. If you make that place better, they don't want to leave. By the way, I just saw this factoid that this young girl who was down with the caravan, again, this is the DNA thing that they did. She was raped by 30 different men. 30 different men. And people want to support the caravan. It's not a good idea. It is not a good idea to place yourself, and your mother and your kids, to place yourself amongst a band of, thieves. It's not good. How can you support that? How can a certain demographic in this country support that? That's reckless. That's absolutely reckless. And yet they do. It's worth it. It's worth the journey. It's worth the risk to get to the United States. Give me a break. All right, let's check in with the chat room. I know it's a little controversial today, but I try to see things as clearly and fairly as I possibly can. I know these people are getting a bum ride where they live. I get it. I totally get it. And I'd probably want to be here too, to be honest with you. But at the same time, we also have to understand that they're being used and manipulated. This is what happens with groups. They're used and manipulated like pawns. Like pawns. There's an agenda that's afoot. There are people who say, okay, if we can weaponize or we can move this group and this group into action, we can use them for some kind of political effort and gain. It's been going on for a very long time. Go back to Caesar. Caesar did the same thing with Rome. And he flooded Rome with all these different tribes and groups and regions all over North Africa, Northern Europe. Let me check in with the chat room here. Let's see, United Nations aided by the cabal is one of the forces behind this globe. Yes, absolutely. Spies, lies, call girls, and even more boys involving SIS and MI5 politics. What else do we have? Yuri B. was revelatory. Bezmenov, yeah. Since then, I've read an autobiography by a Russian KGB general Russian. I stuck with it. Are you aware of the UK 60s? Yeah, of course, Profumo. There was a movie that was done about it. There was a movie it's called Scandal. If you want to find out more about Profumo, and it's with the guy who plays Magneto in the X-Men. The guy who plays Gandalf. Good morning, Jennifer. Good morning, Haven. Good morning, Justice. Yep, French police remove helmets to stand with people. That's right. But I tell you what, man, they're going to try to get more and more outsiders into their police force so that they can follow Macron's orders. There is no culture as AI takes over. Scary. That's right. Yeah, we are at a pivotal time in human history, and people are waking up. This is where it gets interesting. This is where the game gets really interesting, because we're seeing people wake up. Finally, after all these years, right? It's starting to take hold. Jennifer says, I was almost abducted in downtown Los Angeles. It's dangerous. It is dangerous. Absolutely. It's absolutely dangerous. People are waking up. People are waking up. Is it too late? Is the timing off? No, I don't think so. The awakening process began, I'd say, back in the 90s in kind of a more concerted effort, a more concerted way. I'm in downtown LA a lot. I hit up Skid Row for the free meals. There you go. I hope they have good food down there. It is going to be an earthquake. Yeah, so there's a lot happening seismically right now. Huge amount happening seismically. They had another quake along the Ring of Fire. So keep your eyes on that. We've got Uranus moving back into Taurus, and that quake action will be heating up. And you know, when there's unrest, we have a collective body of consciousness, and when there's unrest, right, with us, that unrest will reflect in the place that that we dwell in, which is this planet. So the seismic changes that are about to take place will no doubt be reflected in what's happening topographically with the planet. Sometimes they give away free blankets to restuff a lot of times. Well, there you go. Make sure you wash those blankets. 3 7.0s in the Ring of Fire yesterday. There we go. I love this chat room. Great chat room. Absolutely great. Bring the information all the time. It's great. Even Mexican citizens called it an invasion. Just look what happened in Tijuana. Those people were pissed off. They're like, get the hell out of here. Get out of here. We don't want you here. Yeah, it was like, oh my God. What times we're living in. What times? A real rise and a real mental earthquake. A completely break with the establishment and the structures. It's quite possible. It happened in Atlantis. Right? The white race is not going to lay down and die. Look, it's really interesting to talk about being white. It's like I'm like the least popular guy on the internet, right? I'm a generally middle class, middle aged white guy, and I think it's an interesting demographic for sure. And again, people are waking up. That's all I can say. We're waking up. By the way, the highest rate of suicides over the last 3 to 4 years have been white middle-aged males. Rhonda says, what do you think about Dutch Sense? I think Dutch Sense is a drama queen. That's what I think. I think he's a drama queen. He's always quitting. There's always some threat with the cabal or something. I think he's useful, but I think he's probably quit doing what he's doing about half a dozen times. Okay. I got to get out of here. I got to go do some local radio, anti-fluoride. Hey, go to our Facebook page, Clean Water Fredericksburg. We're looking for some donations so we can get this marketing plan and buy some ads up and running. It's a GoFundMe account. If you can throw in $5, $10, whatever you can throw in that kitty, be really appreciated. We need to get this thing moving and generating so we can get the fluoride out, and hopefully we can provide a template for other communities to do this. Okay, this is part of what we're doing here to literally take the power back. All right, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to soak what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and have yourself a great day today. And I'll be back tomorrow with my good friend Pat Vinci, and we'll talk about Dickens and the Beatles and Frank Sinatra. And you're in for a magic carpet ride. Have a great day.